Welcome back. 1980, Location 1980 podcast. This is going to be our end of the year review, 2023 New Year's Eve edition.
Yeah, and what a year it's been, man.
Has been. As usual, I'm Jesse Fortune. This is my co-host, Eric Ringman.
Let's have a toast to that.
Yeah. And this, love it. That's a great start.
It's a good song.
What are we doing? What do we got?
Overview recap.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah, so this episode is just all about recapping the year. We started this podcast this year, but we sunk our teeth into it, but we had some hiccups as far as equipment and, dealing on it. There was more people involved.
When we were busy. We were doing a lot of
cool shit.
a
lot of stuff. We did a lot of stuff. You went to the burn.
Yeah.
You survived the burn.
Well, and we'll dive deeper into the show, but yeah, I hosted a show here, and then the week after that, I went to my friend's wedding up in San Francisco that I was in, and then the week after that, I went to the burn.
Yeah, and that's just
so
you.
A solid August.
Yeah, and that's just you, let alone the other 15 art spaces we have here, and all the people and all the other artists that we had coming through. So we were just going to give you guys a little taste of what we accomplished this year in 1980, and then we want to do an artist spotlight and talk about your show in particular, and then end with some intentions for 2024 as artists, as individuals, and then as a studio gallery, see what we could bring into 2024.
Hell yeah. Well, shoot, where do we start, man? Where do we start? It's been a big year.
Well, Lauren left in February.
Right, so
That's
yeah,
kind
we
of
taped her episode, and then she flew to Australia like 7 days later.
And Scott showed up 2 days before that.
Yes.
So we segued from Lauren and Luke, who had been here for 4.5, maybe 5 years. They moved to Australia, and she's from there, from Perth. You guys might know from episode 2. If not, go back and check that out. And then my buddy Scott came, who also is the sponsor of this show. We'll talk about that in a second. But Scott was coming to basically start a whole new body of work from Colorado. He was invested in getting a studio in California and going all in on his art. And that came out really well. And he came with the intention, that was February, and he did his show in October. And he also did the Beverly Hills Art Show in October. So
yeah, like the week after hosting his solo show, he goes straight to Beverly Hills.
That's a theme. I guess you go back to back. It's efficient. If you're going to go all out for stuff and you got the momentum, you might as well do a couple appearances or at least show the work to several places. So let's do a real quick shout out to Scott. Scott, we don't have any sponsors yet, if it's not obvious. So we're going to do artist shout outs until we get a sponsor. But in this case, our buddy Scott Ludwig, he's my friend, good friend. He's like a brother to me. I've known him since 1995. We've graduated art school together in Kansas City Art Institute. And he was a big proponent in us doing the 1980 podcast. He's a technical founding father, one of 3 founding fathers of Location 1980. So he had been so proud of what we'd done, but judging from afar, he had seen it. Not a lot of people really know about it, and this is like the perfect video or the format to share. So he was like, you guys got to do it. So we did it, and we were like, our buddy Brandon helped us out with the equipment and stuff. But then
big shout out to Brandon.
For sure. As soon as we started kind of getting a little momentum, Brandon was moving away to San Francisco or Utah, or wherever he ended up moving. But then we didn't have the equipment, and then we got busy. The summer came, and we just started doing everything else. So Scott followed back up with like a Christmas present to the gallery, essentially to sponsor the equipment that you're hearing us on now.
Yeah, basically he loved the podcast so much, and he was missing us not doing it, that he's like, hey, here's all the stuff you need. And so you guys did that yesterday. You went and bought everything we're taping on right now, and then came back here, dropped it off. You're still here taping with me today, and he took off to Colorado like literally immediately after.
Yeah.
he's probably there by now.
He probably is, yeah. The last picture he sent was from Vegas. Super cute. It was Hachi sitting with the Flamingo. Flamingo Hotel in some alleyway.
Well, he sent me, oh my God. So the day after I did my show, it's all-nighter, obviously. And the day after, he goes back to Colorado for a couple weeks, and he sends me this photo of Hachi, right, of his dog, and he's like, "Greetings from Vegas," and it's like in the back alley behind a hotel. There's like a dumpster and pipes coming out of the wall and like electrical boxes and stuff. Like it could have been any large city in the world, and he's just like, "Hey, greetings from Vegas."
He's right at home. I wonder if she could check that. Is that going into the Reddit at all, Jill?
No, it's looking good.
Yeah, we're cool.
You're
All right.
We're on. Yeah, we're playing with the new setup here today.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have to just kind of bear with us because we're essentially artist owned and operated, and our production team is learning as we go.
Yeah, we jumped off the cliff and we're building the airplane on the way down.
Yeah, well, cheers to that. It's been working so far for
That's
13 years.
that's been working for 15 years.
We could stick with that format. What else we got, Joe?
Yeah, speaking of which, like events this year.
Of things we done?
Yeah, I mean, let's take it from the top.
Well, did Lauren's going away party, was that?
Oh, that was colossal. Well, that was like 2 days, but I don't know if we can talk about that on here.
Yeah, that happened or didn't happen, depending on if you were here or not. So that was fun, but that was kind of an off the calendar, closed gate situation. I think the next show after that officially was the Newport Mesa High School District All Senior Art Show. And we did that 2 years in a row. Unfortunately, I've already found out trying to book it again that they have a different gallery chosen or a different location this year. But we did our 2 years of community service for our local up-and-coming young artists most of them were 17 at the time.
Some of that stuff was bomb. Like, I couldn't believe they were doing that.
The teachers...
Just not only the technical skill, but like the access to what they were portraying in a lot of those works at 17. I mean, it was ballsy stuff.
Yeah, it really, at that age, it's easy to reflect on one's own artistic career because a lot of times, especially even those kids' parents or when you talk to the kids themselves, I say kids, they're 17, but teenagers, they're like, "Oh, you probably were an artist in high school," and I was like, "Actually, I wasn't at all." And so I can really like appreciate what you're doing now. So it was eye-opening, like you said, not only what they were doing, but the teacher involvement and just the push to still have like visual and audio arts in schools. You hear a lot about those programs going away, like gym classes and who needs to learn about music and paint and art.
But no, that stuff's essential, dude.
Yeah, right.
You got your brain will atrophy if you're not getting expressed in those ways.
Yeah, it's funny too when you get older that like a lot of seniors would be like, that's what they do. Like my mom, she'll do coloring books, and it's like when people retire, the boomers now, they're getting back into the creative realm and bringing it too, which is really exciting.
Well, yeah, I mean, my mom and well, I won't say her age, but she's done like more watercolors in the last 2 years than the rest of her life put together.
Yeah, it's kind of full circle. It's like when you're a kid, everybody's an artist, and then when you go through a whole career and you get to the end, they're like, "Oh, you should try picking up art," It's like, or you should just do it the whole time.
Well, and I always say, you listen to like Dale Carnegie and a lot of these very rich, successful people that have gotten interviewed over the years, and a lot of times you hear, "Oh, learn something new every day." On the day you die, still be learning something, and that's not bad advice. But what I find more practically useful is not so much learn something new every day, but unlearn something old every day. Because we came factory standard with everything needed for excellence. And then we kind of inherited a bunch of blockages, a lot of bullshit. Yeah, a lot of bullshit, dude, from all kinds of different sources, and that could be, you could do an hour on just that. And it's
incoming bullshit.
It's like, how do you, it's not so much about gaining more as it's about throwing off that bullshit, and put one more nail in that coffin. I got a friend who's a aeronautical engineer, and as mechanical, I got a little taste of some aero guys. And with a plane, right, you've got your thrust, how big is your motor, you got your drag, and you got your lift, and you got your weight. And it's like, hey, they say in aeronautical engineering, right, with enough thrust, you can fly a brick.
Okay.
You put a big enough engine on it, you can fly anything, and who cares what it's shaped like. And I found that I was approaching a lot of life for the first like half of this year, and we'll get into talking about the show, but I was approaching a lot of life with, okay, I'm not putting quite enough fuel into it. I'm not putting quite enough thrust on it. And there's more and more and more. And eventually I was running at the red line the whole time and it wasn't working. And that's when I started to realize, wait a minute, what I probably got to be doing here is not putting on more thrust, but throwing off more weight.
There you go.
You know, let's turn this thing from a fat ass bus into like a lean little motorcycle or something.
Yeah, you know, shed that bad info, you know. All right, drop the weight. Well, that's a good point.
Good
And to that point, we'll keep going down the calendar while we're on topic. After the high school show, I mean, I think your and Cammy's show, it's going to be lit. I think it was next because I can't.
Well, we did you. You had kind of a little show in conjunction with your birthday.
Yes, I usually do.
And we did the Sendero show.
Oh, yeah, we did a pop-up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to kick myself, but we'll find her name and add her in the description. It was a pop-up. So one of the featured things we offer at Location 1980 as a gallery is that if you're an artist that basically you might have a studio but not a proper show place, you can do a pop-up show here where it's just one night or maybe one weekend. A lot of times too, if it's their first show or it's their first big show, most of the people that they know, their circle of influence, as well as ours, is gonna the highest probability is gonna come on the opening night. So when we do a pop-up show, that's all it's gonna be. We'll hang the work, we'll do the reception, and then whatever sells is out the door. Everything else is going back to the artist studio, and then the show's over. So Sendero was one of those shows, and she brought a really cool aesthetic and audience, and it was a really good time.
Yeah, it was unique work, and she sold a ton, too.
She did really well. It was super fun. What else did we do? Was Martial's show this year, or was that last year? I think.
That was this year.
Was it?
That was in January.
Okay,
that was like the second week of the year or something.
Because
Lauren was still around, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that
was this year.
Yeah, that was our homie Martial. Shout out to Martial Yapao. He's a local artist as well. He did a pop-up show himself, and that was really fun.
And that work was nuts, dude. It was fierce.
Yeah, he's originally, I think, born in Africa, and then he might have been raised, I think, in France. I'm almost positive he speaks French. But now he's United States, American, obviously. And Lena was the Sendero show? Okay, cool, yeah. So shout out to Lena. Great crowd. And you too, Martial. So both of our pop-ups this year were fairly successful. And again, that's just one aspect that we offer for artists who might just need some, big walls. I mean, we got a massive show place. So those are two examples of what can happen here, and went really well. My birthday show was kind of like what I had. In about a year and a half, I turned 50, and that show, I'm purposely not gonna probably travel too much this year as far as like out of country, and I'm not gonna do a birthday show because I want to build a body of work that's specific to my 50th birthday, that no one sees the pieces before then.
Yeah.
Whereas this year was like basically the live inventory and some bangers from the past, and a good, easy way to have a fun birthday. It's nice when the gallery is, it's a turnkey operation for a decent get-together reception. And a lot of people came. I was very flattered and humbled. And I got a really cool gift. I got a birthday bong cake sponsored by another shout-out artist, Amy Kells. She's one of our resident artists. And she has a studio here for, I think she's the second longest tenure to me. I think
she's the longest runner.
She's had an art studio for about 6.5 years here. And I guess they brought out my cake and surprised me, and everybody's like singing happy birthday. It was super cool. But the bundt cake had a bong in the middle of it, which was packed. And I guess when they handed me the cake, I had to blow out the candles and then immediately like rip a bowl. And then everybody's like, speech. And I got like 4 words into it before I realized I'm really, really high. I got to start over. But then I think I pulled it off. But it was a good time, and I was humbled and honored at the amount of friends and family and guests and homie artists that were here to celebrate. So I draw a lot of inspiration from all the artists I get exposed to, and then that's a kind of a cool way to kind of give back to everyone. Like I'm at a certain level of success at least, and sometimes it's cool for the younger artists to see that. So.
Well, I had a similar thing happen when I hosted a birthday here. My birthday's in January, so it's like there's not a lot else going on, right? Christmas and all that stuff is over, and we hadn't gotten into Valentine's, St. Patrick's, all that stuff yet, and it's kind of this lull of true wintertime, and then I got a birthday right in there to punctuate it. And I remember not even like designing or advertising a party whatsoever one year here. And I just, because I was like in kind of a curmudgeon-y mood from the start of the year that year.
Bah humbug.
Yeah, I was super crusty that year, just for the whole month of January.
Gross.
And mentally crusty. And so I had just put out there that like, hey, I'm going to be at the studio on Friday, you know, I'm going to bring a bottle of champagne. Like, if you guys want to kick it, come on down. But it wasn't advertised as a party whatsoever. And next thing I know, just all the guests, they did this of their own volition. Next thing you know, there's like 50 people here, and they're all like dressed in coordinated outfits, and they made me this insane cake with a Barbie on it that was in all this like leather gear, which I still have that Barbie.
Of course you do.
But of course, yeah, it's on my shelf at home. Dude, yeah.
Now that the movie came out, I mean, how much is that Barbie really worth now? I mean,
oh my God, 10 times as much, you know, and 100 times as much in my heart. I did Barbenheimer on opening day.
Okay.
Because I was talking about that for like a month, and so there was no way I wasn't gonna do it. And I was originally planning to go to the 70mm IMAX at the Irvine Spectrum, and I'm thinking, okay, Friday, Irvine, like I'm gonna be able to get a showtime. 7 a.m. I look online, all shows the whole day sold out. I'm like, shit, where's the next closest 70mm IMAX? Chinese theater. So I'm like, all right, they had tickets available. So I hopped on the motorcycle and I went up to Hollywood, and boom, I did that with like the gray top half and the pink bottom half, just full Barbenheimer mode.
Did you take the Barbie with you?
I did not take it to
the move. That would have been the move.
That would have been good.
But you went and saw it, so that's cool. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to do a birthday shindig here. I mean, we talked about that on episode 1, birthdays, New Year's Eve, Halloween,
weddings,
Super Bowl, some kind of kid's birthday, 30th anniversary. We've probably done 5 of all the things I've just listed, and 5 more I can't think of right now. So, so whenever we're doing a calendar, you know, rewind like we are now, there's some things that are scheduled that are pretty big, like the high school art show, or maybe both of our birthdays were kind of impromptu. Like, you know what, let's just open the doors and see who comes.
Well, yeah, and that's the reason I went so far into that story, is like the fact that I really designed nothing, but the community just arose out of nothingness into this event. It became an event out of nothing.
Perfect. Organic. That's how we roll. And then I guess the rest of the summer, let's see. I'm pretty sure after the Sendero show, there was just, in my birthday, I can't remember. I think she was in July. And we were timing it to have it's going to be lit. So it's you and Mercat. It was a duo, featured 2 artists, yourself included.
Yeah, well, because we've done a bunch of collaborative pieces where it's her paintings with my neon. And so that was a part of the show. And then a bunch of our individual stuff was the rest of it.
And that show was great. Before we get into the aesthetic that you're currently looking at now, I'll let Eric explain that. But we had a meeting, and shout out to Mercat, Camille Murray. She's not here right now, so I don't want to speak too much for her as far as her work goes, because we can have her on.
We'll definitely get her on one of these episodes soon,
yeah. For sure. But leading up into your guys' show, like, and it's especially knowing both of you are going to go to the Burn. And for those of you that haven't been to Burning Man, even like in January, to some people, right after it ends, it occupies a certain brain space. If you know you're going to go, and both of you guys...
For months.
Yeah, for months.
And months.
And the closer it gets, the bigger the brain space. So that it makes it to where you almost can't focus on other things. We have... less and less ability to focus on other things because it's looming, and it's coming and it's getting closer. And leading up to your show, even in the planning phase, we knew as, hosting it for you guys, it's essentially like a fundraiser too. You want to have, it was both your first like really big art reception.
Yeah, it was our first name show.
Yeah, and it was also the first time that we were able to use the entire property as far as like, that was the first show we had to where we went all out with the valet parking, and then we had a formal entrance to the show, like a flat out exit through the gift shop. So when people came,
straight up, all of it.
They were literally, the people who have been here before were kind of thrown off because there was a different entrance, and they actually got to go through. They had to go through the front door of the building, which had never happened before for an art show here in the time I've been owning Location 1980. So our pageantry was pretty nice, and then we did a step and repeat. So we had several photo ops as soon as you got in the door.
Oh yeah,
and we really got everybody that kind of, there was the pomp and circumstance was totally worth it, because then once people got into the gallery and got to see the work, then they were properly blown away. They were kind of prepared for it. Like, wow, this is a lot going on. Like, can we see the art now? And then when they did, they were like
a couple appetizers before they get to the entree,
Yeah, and it really worked out. So just that being said, as a host to that show, knowing from the planning phase until the night of the show, that really worked out and was so worth like a couple production planning meetings and just making sure we had everything, all the ducks in a line, and then pulling it off. And it was really fun. And the amount of support you guys garnered was just really intense. Can you take that and answer it? Oh, yeah. Or you can, yeah, sorry. Just call them back. Tell them we're busy.
This is a popular spot. We're getting calls into the studio. We're eventually going to open up a live line. We're going to do a couple live episodes, I think, at some point in the future.
As soon as we can.
People calling in with questions.
As soon as we can.
All that good stuff.
Yeah, as soon as we can go live on, at least if we can stream live on YouTube, we can at least answer questions while we're shooting. So we're doing this in one take, obviously, and there probably aren't going to be a lot of edits, but in the future, hopefully we can be live and we don't even have to edit it, or it's going to be how it comes. But it will be nice to get the real-time comments and stuff from the audience. But that was one of our studio artists calling me with a question, I'm pretty sure. He's the kid now. So about 100 artists have come and had studios here in the last years. And there's always a kid, and it could be a guy or girl, it doesn't matter. But somebody's the youngest. And now I think he's 18.
Oh, wow.
Or maybe even 20, I'm not sure. But he's definitely the youngest. I think he beat Revel by like 4 years or something.
Yeah.
So now he's the kid, and he had the nerve to call me during the podcast, which I forgot to tell him about. So,
exactly. Nobody knows we're doing this. We got the door open.
We get the door open, and they're in the next room, but it's pretty quiet in here. I mean, we're good. Again, we're doing a full-on dive right in with the new mics and the mixer, so... We'll always
playing with it all.
Yeah, we'll always do better. Jillian ran away with the.
Well, in that show, like if we can talk about that for a minute. I don't know if you want to dive fully into it right now.
I do.
That was the first time I'd done that, and that was like 6 months. That was all I was thinking about since February to August when we put it on. Was just that.
Yeah. So to set the stage one more time, it was Camille Murray Mercat and Eric Ringman. It's Gonna Be Lit was the name of the show, and take it from there. Tell me about like going from not having done a show, and then you guys had some collab pieces, but you also had some solo pieces, including the one we're about to talk about now.
Yeah, if you guys are on the video, that's the one that we're sitting right in front of here. That's on the wall behind us.
But even if you like. I think maybe it helped that you had worked on some pieces together, but like both of you were essentially at a point where you could have also just did a show by yourself to some degree, but regardless, like the show was happening, and you're doing it.
That's an interesting point for me, because I did not. I had never done one at that time, right? I never had a like solo or a name, headline title show of any kind,
right?
And up to that point. And so I didn't feel like I had enough work to fill up a room,
especially
and do
that
an
room,
entire event.
Yeah. Asterisk and side note, that room is really big. I've done a solo show in there before, and it takes a lot of work.
And it
to
was
fill it
you
up.
saying, right, and you've obviously put on 100 shows in there over the years, and you've been to all kinds of exhibitions and just been like all throughout the art world for well over a decade. And you were unhesitatingly like, oh yeah, dude, you absolutely have got enough to make a show like that happen.
Yeah.
And that had me think, I was like, really? Okay. And next thing you know, we're planning out where we're going to put the pieces, and it's almost getting tight. It's almost like we're running out of room. And I'm like, oh, shoot, okay. I kind of didn't realize that it doesn't take... And this is me trying to talk to other artists who are in my position of never having done their own solo show before. It doesn't take as much as maybe you think it does. I think I at least had this idea of like a colossal volume of work that would be
like a
required.
Retrospective or something.
Yeah.
Or a museum.
To even pull something off like that.
Yeah.
And with the stuff that largely fits in this room, which is significantly smaller than the actual gallery space,
1/7.
between me and her, we were able to really pull this thing off.
And you had room to edit, so that's also something for younger artists. Like, you do want to have maybe more than enough to then edit it down to your best pieces.
Yeah, your really choice.
For whatever your message is, especially if it is a group show or even a duo show, or maybe say there's 3 artists. You know, some of those pieces, like in your instance, you had some pieces that had both your work on it. A collab piece that showed both your skill sets off, but then there was definitely like absolutely other pieces that were just what you did and what she did that didn't necessarily have anything to do with each other.
Not at all.
Yeah, but it worked.
But we both have a very like glam aesthetic.
And especially like,
it's very punchy and like hyper real.
And under the guise of it's going to be lit was great.
Yeah, while the art is actually illumination.
Yeah.
Well, in this piece, this Dharma Frank Sinatra piece that's in front of us.
Let's run it down.
This is by far the biggest neon piece I've ever done. And so there's, if you're not on the video, I'll give a very brief description. It's about an 8-foot diameter lotus flower with 8 petals on it. And there's a different neon symbol on each petal. And then the image of Sinatra, which I took from the cover of the Greatest Hits album, is on the center of this flower, which is motorized, and the whole thing rotates at about 4 revs per minute. And the first time that I assembled this was for the show in place in the gallery. It's not like I built it in here, tested it, and then took it down and assembled it in the gallery. I built it for the first complete time in the gallery, actually finishing at about 1:30 a.m.
I got to
the
watch
show
him
starting
do it.
at 6 p.m. that night. Yeah, Jesse's walking around kind of giving me these looks of like, the hell is this guy doing? But like this does not look close to anything coherent.
Well,
but there was enough trust that like, I've kind of seen him pull off some ridiculous shit before, so let's just see it go.
That, and there's the thing where I put on at that point, I'm not the featured artist, I'm the gallery owner, gallerist. So I'm thinking like, all right, no matter what, the show has to go on, or maybe we don't show this piece. I mean, I've seen stuff get broken before, or it didn't get delivered in time, so you just hang a replacement piece or black curtain or whatever it is. Like, this is where the front desk is going now or whatever. But we were almost at that point, because I usually have a rule, like, if you had to work all night, fine. But sometimes at like about midnight, it's like, well, we should be like, doing labels and just...
Yeah, there should be some semblance of completion to the big components.
Well, and
you're only tidying up the window dressing at this point, not like designing the showstopper centerpiece of the entire show.
And to make it even more poignant was like everything else was completely done. So everything was hung, all the labels were done, all the lights were perfect. And then you were still, and I was like, all right, well, I think he's going to figure it out. And I actually, I went and checked out and didn't see it again until the morning. I was like, I'll be damned, because I think when I came into the gallery that day, or whenever we opened, I was just so tempted because I saw the switches. I was like, I got to do it.
You got to touch them. Well, that's where I was going, right?
And it worked. I was like, oh, man. This was like in parts on a box. Like, it looked like an ultimate, like, crazy neon IKEA kit. And Eric was like, a fifth of the way being finished almost. The last time I saw it, and then the next thing I saw was actually finished on the wall.
Yeah, well, and I spent a lot of time very specifically designing it from step one so that it could be, despite the fact that it's humongous, so that it could easily be constructed and deconstructed by one person very readily.
And once all the components are like affixed.
Yeah. You put them on one by one. It's like very modular in its design and all that. And I remember firing this thing up for the first time, and so it's got 8 individual neon pieces, and so it's 8 transformers plus the center hub, so that's 9. Which the closest other thing I've got, I think, has like 2 transformers at most. That's probably the Fine knife. And when I flipped this thing on, as I was wondering, I'm like, how much gallery lighting are we going to need to supplement the artwork, which is itself illuminating? Right? Are we going to be able to use the works? Is that sufficient light to illuminate the whole room? Or are we going to need gallery lights? And I flipped this thing on, and it's like a fucking lighthouse. Like, the back wall was going to burn down. I was like, whoa! Like how bright this was. It was an amazing moment turning that on the first time.
I believe it. For those of us, for those of our audience that's watching, can you turn it on now just to...
Yeah, so we'll do the motorized movements of it. So this is probably going to engender a little bit of audio. We won't do this for the whole time. But yeah, if you're watching the video, of course, here's what it actually looks like in its full rotational splendor. So the title is The Dharma, Frank Sinatra.
Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers to that, man.
That's awesome.
Big fan of the chairman of the board. I spent a lot of time,
Old
especially
Blue Eyes?
when I was growing up, in Palm Springs.
Cut it.
And, especially with my father, he took me to galleries and museums and stuff out there constantly when I was very young. And so that's how I got really infused with art and with an artistic temperament. And Sinatra lived in Palm Springs longer than he lived in any other place in his life. That's what he ultimately considered home. And there's a whole documentary about that, actually, that's on YouTube. But there's something really comfortable about this piece. The design of it came so readily, probably close to 2 years ago, but It wasn't until about 3 months, maybe 2 months before the show that I actually started physically fabricating it. And once it started, man, that process just blazed.
Yeah.
Because I had a lot of things I wanted to have in this show, some of which ultimately got cut. And this one from the start, I'm like, there's no way that's getting cut.
Gotta have it.
It's gonna be there and complete. And yeah.
Well, now that
I know it's my work, but I'm thrilled about it.
Yeah, we are too. And now that it's done, anybody watching this that lives in Palm Springs that might be a fan of the art, if you know a hotel, like I'm thinking boutique hotel, maybe casino, this place needs to be a public installation where people could see it, because I think it would go really well out there. Like you said, if he spent his, most of his life there, or the majority, he's well beloved, and
the street's named after him, and all the restaurants that he's regular at. And he's buried out there.
It's a recurring theme, yeah. So it's like, so anybody listening, you know, some hoteliers in Palm Springs, or maybe Vegas, we got a piece for you. Actually, we got a few, so contact us, message us.
Yeah, the stuff is big and it's bright, and it probably is suited to a hotel. It would take a very special person to put this in the living room.
Yeah, and unless you're like Dan Blazerian or something, and you got a ultimate man cave. Like
I was gonna say, if you're doing a full like Vegas Rat Pack style man cave, this would definitely fit in there.
Behind the bar, above the pool table. So yeah, man. So you guys pulled it off. That show went really well. And then what was your schedule like? So you did the show. We all pulled it. It was awesome. You and Cammie did great. You guys, I remember I put them on the spot. It was pretty funny. We've done this to artists. I've had it done myself. The first time I wasn't expecting. My first solo show was at my buddy Joe's house. Big ups to Joe Burke. He hooked it up, and several of my other friends, they gave me a shot to do my first solo show. I was super nervous, and at the time I was turning 30 also, and my mom was there and my family, and it was a big deal, and people came from like multiple parts of the state and other states, and I was just, this whole room full of people that really dig my work and they love me, and it's very humbling. And then the last thing I expected somebody to go, all right, speech or artist talk. And at that point I was so overwhelmed. Just number one, I was turning 30, and number two, I was having my first art show. So I can't remember what I said at the time, but I do remember it's impactful enough to, when you're in that position, it's important. A lot of people are going to tape it now. I think even back then, I'm not sure how many cell phones were in the room, or I got away with murder. I could have said whatever I wanted. But as a gallerist, I've seen now that it is important to kind of, give people a warning, like Corky when he had his show, but you still got to do it, at least say one or two sentences about the work. I mean, I've heard artists.
People love that. They come for that, and you're the centerpiece of the room the whole night, and you get that couple minutes on top of the apple crate, to chat.
Yeah, and sometimes the art, maybe it can say everything you're trying to say, but in this instance, we're doing a reception, and the people are there to see you and your work. So you guys did it, and I kind of gave you a small warning, and then I just rallied the whole crowd. I'm like, all right, the artists are going to speak now, and you guys did great. But I think that was pretty impactful.
Well, I'm glad, and it's funny because that element of shows, I love.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled about it. Like, you gotta cut me off. Cammie hates it. It's the last thing she wants to see.
She was a little flustered, but she flipped that pretty quick.
No, she was super eloquent because we have tape of it, like you said. Everybody's got a phone. Really cool. She was super eloquent and just so clear on her description of how she got. We'll wait to dive into that till we get her as a guest here, but she was so articulately clear on the development of everything that she did to make that work.
To be an artist,
to be an artist at all, and then also how that transformed unexpectedly through the process of making the work for that show.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes those moments to like crystallize, to like maybe without that pressure of everybody looking at you, you're not going to be quite on point, but that's what it takes to be on that level. If you're trying to just scribble it down and the safety of your living room, you might write some things and do some stuff, and the whole audience is like, what they got, But you guys did well, and that was a good bow at the end of that show. And then you mentioned you immediately were like, you had to go to a wedding and before the burn.
It
was like back to back to back.
The show that was Saturday. Then the following week, I was up to Northern California for a wedding. And then the week after that was the burn. And it's so funny because a lot of our mutual friends, like I've got a lot of burner friends, and several of which who come to figure drawings here. So like I'm seeing them week after week, and I'm thinking about nothing but this show. Like since February. And now when we're in the last 2 weeks of it, dude, I'm like up to midnight every night. And even when I'm finished here, I'm not finished, right? It's not like I just go home and pass out. I gotta go home and take a super long shower, and there's like metal shavings coming out of my hair because I've been grinding and like cutting steel and all this stuff for the last 8 hours, and it's like that every day. It's like a full hour from when I leave to when I actually get to bed, and it was just that day after day and that final push. And I would have people coming up to me being like, yo, dude, you excited for the burn? Like, where are you camping? Like, tell me about this. Like, you got any projects going? And I'm like, oh, wait. Oh, yeah, the burn's going on? Like,
just give me like 5 more minutes.
It was not on my mind at all. Like, I was happy to go to it, but it was literally not on my mind at all the way it was for these people for like 2 months straight.
Yeah, it's hard
once the show was over, it's like, oh, yeah, that's right, the burn's coming up. And that felt like a walk in the park by comparison.
It's funny. It's almost like an antidote, because when you are going to the burn, you should be prepared, of course, but especially if you've been before and you're like, all right, I got all the stuff, I can do the costumes. Sometimes there's undue pressure just because you're going, but you had such a monumental, more important individual accomplishment right in front of it that you get to steal back some of that nervousness, and you put so much well-earned time and energy, and you got all the props, and you pulled it. You and Kimmy both that it was like a nice shield. And once it was over, instead of being like now let me re-peek out for Burning Man and get all nervous, you were like, oh, I'll just walk right into this. Like you said, it was nothing.
Because I'd been several times before, she had been before.
Yeah.
And so we knew what we were getting into at the burn. We knew how to prepare for it. And it was like the previous year, right? We were working on Lauren's project.
Yeah.
We
Again,
were
a pleasant distraction almost,
In a way, yeah. But we were going big and going hard. And this year, it was like, hey, we're just taking care of our bare essentials. We're bringing our food, we're bringing our stuff to stay warm, we're bringing our place to sleep. And other than that, we're kind of coasting. Like, it was low key.
Yeah. Because
the burn, there's 70,000 people there. We're one small part of making the burn go off awesomely.
Right.
For that show, we were 100% of making it go off awesomely.
Yeah.
So it was like, talk about relaxing, and we spent a lot of time together at that burn, and it was just a week-long exhale after what we had just done.
That's great, man. Well, good on you for pulling it off and sharing the experience and the work with the audience. And we probably can add some links in the description to check out all the work. One thing I do want to talk about going forward, separate, it has to do with your show, but it could also be a talking point for another guest artist or just how we feel about it in general. But you cleverly used maybe Chat GTP for the promo,
yes,
which came out so hilariously slick. It was a big part, I think, in like gaining people's initial attention. They're like, I hadn't seen anything like this. Real. It was really cool. I don't know if you want to talk like crazy about it or anything, but just it was a good idea. You pulled it off well. It was super short, maybe a minute.
Yeah, if even. Yeah, maybe like 45 seconds.
It was for
a brief ad.
Definitely for
that. So the show was in
social
August,
media,
we
right?
Put this out. Yeah, it was all over social media and put it on the internet everywhere. And we made that in like early May.
We'll add a link.
First series. Yeah, we'll put a link in the description of the podcast here for sure. It was the first serious piece of advertising for the show that we did. So she and I had been working on artwork for the show for probably about, that was May, probably about 3-4 months already by that time, but we hadn't been doing anything promotional, and this was our first promotional piece. So it was co-posted by both of us. We put it on Instagram and everything, and it's we used a lot of several AI tools for it, and the lead up to it is actually kind of a fun story in itself, because I had moved into this new apartment. You were at my housewarming party over there, and I had lived in this dog shit place that was meant to be temporary, but because of COVID, that temporary place turned into 3.5 years.
Shout out to the dog shit place.
I did some important things there.
All right,
it made me who I am. Right. And so I finally moved into this new apartment, and it was a huge personal deal. And so I had everybody over for the housewarming party, and the day after, so that was Saturday. So Monday, she goes out of town for work for the week, and then the following week, I go out of town for work for the week, and she had very casually said at the housewarming party, like, hey, why don't you put into ChatGPT, like, what would an art show look like that we put on if it went in the best possible way? And I'm like, you know what, that's a fun prompt. And I hadn't worked with any AI LLMs at all yet. And I'm like, that's a convenient thing for me to kind of dip my toe into that stuff. And it got to be that Friday 2 weeks later, and I was going to see her in the evening, and I'm like, because I hadn't seen her in 2 weeks, and I'm like, oh, shoot, I still haven't done that AI thing. Let me try that. And so at like high noon that day, I put in about 2 sentences about me, 2 sentences about her, and I go, okay, how would an art show that these two people, if it went off just absolutely tits fantastic,
it's going to be lit.
What would it be like? Yeah, if it was totally lit. And ChatGPT puts out like a 1.5-page description of a badass art show, and I'm like, all right, that's good, but can you maybe outline the steps to make that happen rather than retroactively describing it? And it comes out with an 8-point plan. And then I designed costumes.
That was great.
And I'm like, imagine you're legendary couturier Cristobal Balenciaga, and you have to design outfits for 2 fly artists on this spectacular night of glamorous light and luxurious color, yada, yada, yada. And it designed outfits. I fed the outfit descriptions from the one AI into Midjourney.
Oh, okay.
And I had a photo of her, and I had a photo of me that I had already possessed, where we're kind of standing in these model-esque poses, and I had
it's gonna be lit.
Based off of those, but then put us in like these crazy outfits with like gold filigrees and green velvet and all this badass stuff, and they animated them into that ad. So it's us, but like model 90s runway model versions of us, like it's gonna be lit. Valet parking.
Pretty
12th August.
Yeah, pretty clever. You could tell it was like unslick enough to where like you knew it was AI, but then it was clever enough to where it totally worked because it was like
and that's the
just
fun.
a
There's
novice.
a little bit of this like dumb robotic movement of like only a slight head tilt, you know, and it kind of looks like a 90s Balenciaga show. It was a blast.
Yeah,
like making that thing was fun.
Good shot. We're definitely not done in that arena as far as AI as a topic for artists and as a tool, because that was everything I've heard about AI, like artists are running for the hills.
Well, some are.
Some are, yeah, but in this case, it was a great example of how you can immediately that's a tool like everything else is, like a screwdriver,
Exactly, because I hear people saying this, and I won't go into this long. I mean, you could do an hour on this if you wanted to, but I'll keep it brief. A lot of the things I hear people saying about AI are the same things that people were saying about photography 100 to 140 years ago.
Exactly, like word for word.
Word for word.
Yeah.
Dude, you can pull quotes out of books and newspapers from the 1890s.
And then they were hating on Picasso and them for being so stoked. The Cubists and I guess right when not just photography but the first kind of films came out, and they were into it, and a lot of other artists were hating because they were just leaning into it. They're like, dude, you can't run away from it. It's not like I spoke to him or anything, but I have followed those
lives of Picasso.
Yeah, and those portions of history and how it relates to how our juxtaposition to AI, and like you're saying, how people used to talk about photography, but then also right after that was videography, and it's just word for word. It's like, that'll ruin everything. Nobody will have to learn how to draw anymore. It won't mean shit. And then guess what? It still does.
Yeah, guess what? We still got illustrators. We still got painters. We still got all that dope shit.
And there's going to be this tech backlash or a tech. I think there's going to be. I mean, it's always going to get better, I guess. But I'm already seeing right now, it's ironic enough, I think, when you catch people, and I've seen it, and I've been done it myself, but it's usually people that are artists, and they go to watch art. I guarantee you, they're not watching somebody play with the iPad, or not play, but illustrate on a tablet. What they're watching is somebody throw on a potting wheel or carve with a chainsaw. Yeah. So they're actually using their phone, ironically
Glass
enough.
blowing. Yeah,
so they're using their phone to watch some of the most old skill art.
Blacksmithing.
Yeah, which is so it's there's always that, no matter the window you're looking at it, that stuff's always going to be sexy.
There's an intrigue to brutal reality.
Yeah, and you're using your hands to, make magic, and no software can kind of take that away. It could do its thing, and that's fine, but it can't
that doesn't close stuff down. That's just a new cool thing.
Exactly. So that was a good example of you just twisting it real quick in a 40-second ultimate little funny clip, which has to come back. That thing was great.
It's I love it. I've watched it a gazillion times. I'm so satisfied with it.
I think we're gonna take a quick break. We'll pause.
Yeah,
halftime, and then we'll come back, and we're gonna get into a little bit of art history and our 2024 art resolutions or intentions. However you want.
Coming off that topic, look into the future.
Let's go. Yeah, we did a little break. We might edit this out. We might not. But wherever we come back in, I want to talk a little bit about my personal art goals and what I have accomplished. And I think more importantly, for a good lesson or what's kind of bugging me at the end of the year, I like to do kind of an assessment before I get carried away with New Year's resolutions. And I felt this the entire year, literally since January 1st, 2023, that this year was kind of fucked. And I'm Mr. Brightside I have to be. It's in my nature, and I've conditioned myself like it's gonna work out. But I got to a point this year where I was overwhelmed because we tried to expand when maybe we shouldn't have, and a lot of the post-pandemic kind of what hit most people with regular jobs right away didn't hit me until the pandemic, the 2 years was over. And this year I caught it right on the chin right away. And it just kept coming and coming and coming. So what I mean by that is just we tried to expand physically at the business, and it came just at the wrong time.
Yeah, we got those front units. We literally expanded the property.
Yeah, to max it out. So we can't rent any more of the property. The lease is maxed out, and we got the storefront, which was all good, but it ran into immediate problems. It was like there's plumbing and electrical, and we didn't have the right tenants, and I'm looking for artists to fill. And my whole year started with everything that was not me making art. And it just kept going like that. And it kept like...
Well, it rained like crazy
last year.
Starting on like January 2nd.
Yeah.
And you had to replace the whole roof and stuff out there.
We did.
Like starting right away.
We did a lot of... it was like a bootstrap moment that turned into a bootstrap year. But normally when that happens, you could sit on, like you're more near the light at the end of the tunnel. This time I kept, every time like a bad dream, like every time you take a step towards the end of the tunnel, light,
it gets further.
It gets a little further, and you're like, and if you run faster, it gets farther. But if you slow down and really take it on the chin, you can inch a little closer. And so it was one of those years where the world was telling me, like, dude, you might not be making that much work. But it's kind of like you said earlier, like, you got to shed some things as opposed to, like, learning the new ones, just unlearn. So I was trying all year to offload and, like, all right, we can overcome, like, dotted I's and crossed T's. So we have now the tenants, and like, we're maxed out. Our studios are full. We've a lot of artists have come and gone, but the artists we have now, there's a whole new energy, and it was worth doing it because it was kind of a bit of a gamble, a bit of a risk, a lot of exposure, but it's so worth it. But in order to do all of this, it meant that I had to put on my non-painting hat, whichever means whatever 16 other hats that is. I didn't get to make a lot of work, and whenever I did, and I was fortunate enough, I had a lot of commissions, and they were really good commissions. Shout out to all my patrons. I really don't want to sound like I'm woe is me. I didn't get to actually do the painting, the hours behind the canvas,
administration.
And so it was like every time I did get to paint, and then when the piece was done, like, it was really good, and like my patrons loved it, and I was fortunate to have it. But I just felt it fighting where I kind of gave in somewhere in the year. I just was like, I'm going to paint when I can, and sometimes now I'm so defeated or so like kind of worn down or stressed out that I don't even want to paint, which I hate even saying that out loud. It's kind of blasphemy for me, but also I am wearing a lot of hats and I'm doing something different. I try to give myself a break. So what I did is this year I made it a point. I was like, all right, look, I don't technically have a business partner. We have a big collective, but I need some leverage. I need some help. There's certain things that I've systemized that I don't have to do. That's the whole reason for the system. So this year I specifically, I didn't know at the time, and I was looking for assistance in a very matter-of-fact way. And I found it in the form of Jillian, who is off camera right now, but it was her idea.
Our sound engineer.
Yeah, and our production assistant. She's also my personal assistant and our booking agent and our social media manager, amongst other things, including valet, pizza maker, chair arranger, DJ, lighting coordinator. And these are all things that I used to do. And it's funny because it sounds like some random titles, but that's kind of what it takes.
It sounds a little bit mundane, but that's what makes it work.
It takes it, and
it would break if that stuff wasn't done.
Yeah, the little things. But it's great how it happened because she came to me, and she was like, came from one of our meetup classes and workshops. Shout out to Victory, who we started a music academy. So I met Jillian and David who came through our music academy, which we teach muses how to be professional muses. But after that, she was like, yo, flat out, you need help. I was about to go on a trip, my 30th high school reunion back in St. Louis, Missouri. And she was like, dude, just let me help you, bro. Like, just beat me over the head with it. And I was like, and then like finding like a little bit of pride and reluctantness. I was just like, yeah, we'll see or whatever. And then not only was I so impressed and relieved that when I was gone, I could trust someone, and it had been a while, especially since Lauren left, where I could just like dip out and be at John Wayne or driving towards Vegas and know that everything's going to be taken care of or even improved, or definitely improved, not because I'm gone, but just because I'm gone to give it space. So shout out to Jillian. Thanks, Jill. She filled a void to the point where it was worth it, and it immediately let me then start painting more. It's like, all right, now she's got a handle on the schedule and booking the models and things that I can do. Like, because I own a gallery doesn't mean I really want to be a gallerist. I really want to paint. So to round out my 2023 Bitch Fest, we solved the problem in a big way. But it meant that now I can paint, and I am actually scheduled to paint with the homie Jeff Winnie. Tomorrow is going to be my last piece of the year. We're going to do one more plein air painting. I think we're going to Big Corona in Newport Beach, Corona Del Mar. And I wanted to end the year on a high note, because if nothing else happened, we solved some problems, and now we're poised for next year. Me personally, not just as the kind of ringleader here, managing the gallery, but as an artist. Next year I want to work 10 times more than I did this year, and it's up to me to make that happen. So to finish this year, I'm gonna start off with, not only did I want to do this podcast before the end of 2023, this particular episode, but I want to make one more painting, and Jill was a big part of that, filling in those shoes and bringing extra to the table that we didn't have before, and it's necessary, and we're looking for more help too. I think in the end, I told her, I was like, once you're the boss, we'll get some interns, and then we can go from there. But it just reminds me that I'm proud of what we do here, and the platform that all the artists have to showcase their work. But it also reminds me that I need to chop wood and carry water, which for me means build canvases, go cool places, make cool paintings, stoke people out with an aesthetic, make people happy. And the more I paint, the more people I can touch and stoke them out. So that's
what makes your operation of this place so legit, is the fact that you are an artist yourself.
It means a lot. I guess it would. It
really does.
It'd be way different. And I've even thought about it. I was like, what's the worst case scenario? What if I just leaned into it? I stopped painting entirely, which is, now I'm totally bullshitting. This is like seriously hypothetical, but like, what if I was blind or something? I don't know. I don't, knock on wood. But what if I just said, it would be even better as an artist, like spoof, like, I'm just fucking, I'm not painting anymore. But if I did that, I would demand immediately more attention and more time to all these things that I'm talking about. I'm like, all right, well, let's just say that's a given. I don't have to paint anymore. So I'm leaning into what's the next art show? How do I become a better gallerist? All these things. But I am going to paint, and I don't want to not paint. So it's just like, can we get some more help? Can we get people in positions to do those things to where we can all grow without being handcuffed to the broom or the ladder or the lights or the microphone, and like put a palette knife back in my hand, Get me, I want to be out there making cool paintings in cool places, and that's what I do best as an artist. So that's my goal for next year. So that's what I got for you guys. And with that, I'm gonna
let me take a drink after that.
Yeah.
I gotta let that sit in the air for a second.
Thanks,
all right, man, that deserves a little bit of space in the air.
I appreciate that a lot. We're going to introduce a new segment on our podcast here called This Day in Art History.
This has never been done before.
Yeah.
You're witnessing the beginning, ladies and gentlemen.
This is it. So let's see what we got here.
So this day is, December 28th?
It is. Right? Okay. Let's see. This is from the Italian Art Society. Today, December 28th, is the feast day of the Holy Innocents. The Gospel of Matthew recounts how King Herod ordered the execution of all male infants in Bethlehem. Damn,
dude. That's hard. All right, keep going.
Out of his desire to protect his throne, unbeknownst to the king, Joseph and Mary had fled the city, sparing Jesus the same fate. Medieval, I kind of like that European medieval.
I like that style, medieval.
Theologians claim that 144,000 were killed, adopting the number mentioned in Revelation 14:3, I guess. I don't know what the colon means. I'm not a big Bible guy. Though the number would have been much smaller. Honored as martyrs, the holy innocents were typically included in narrative cycles recounting the life of Jesus. The horror of the event provided artists the opportunity to show great emotion. Giotto, The Massacre of the Innocents, 1310. So there's several artists here.
So he did a painting?
There's several artists, yeah. Giotto, Fra Angelico, that's 1451. Tempera on panel. So these are all images.
This is going to be lousy for the people who are listening and not watching the video.
It is, but also I just learned all this myself, and you can look these paintings up. So the first one is Giotto, The Massacre of the Innocents. This is in 1310.
Wait, can you show me it at least?
Yeah, it's a fresco.
Can one person get enjoyment out of this podcast?
Absolutely. Well, what we're going to do is provide the link.
We'll dub it in.
Yeah, we'll provide the link. And these paintings are gnarly. So, I guess at one point, the only real art that got published or any pub was always religious, right? I mean...
Oh, for a long time, yeah.
So, I mean, it is December, so of course there's going to be some Jesus rolling through. And all the paintings are gnarly. I mean, it's called The Massacre of the Innocents. So, go with that. There's like, yeah.
I feel like it's going to be some like Goya energy.
So, the next art history...
Oh, yeah. This was in the 1300s, 1200s?
Yeah, 13 and 15.
Yeah, it's got that kind of energy, dude. Shit, look at the detail. Dude, some of these paintings from this era.
Well, I mean, also, too, like, it makes you think, like, they woke up that day and started painting and they didn't do anything else but paint until they went to bed.
Granted, this guy, man, his torso looks like it's a shirt.
Yeah,
do you see
I
that
think
right there?
this day in art history in the future, he's getting skinned, I think.
Oh,
shit. It is a shirt. Yeah, that's rough. Revealing his demon legs, maybe. So in January,
which I will do on a future episode.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
In January, this day in art history will be less bleak. Perhaps, maybe this is a good sign. I mean, I guess this had to happen before the, after the darkness there was light, I guess, or whatever. I'm not sure.
I don't know how to go into the darkness to get the light first.
I don't know how to. I don't know how to make a good spin on this, other than these are really nice paintings. They're just really dark and
they're killer pieces.
Literally, yeah. Hashtag dead babies. So with that, we're gonna go on to your
slay on Instagram.
Yeah, we're getting your less alive babies. Maybe they were just sleeping and gray. But with that, Eric, I opened my my heart as far as my intentions and what I want to do aesthetically. We talked about a lot about your piece that the Dharma here. For those of you listening, the Dharma is the big piece we spoke about of Frank Sinatra. So what about you going forward? 2024, what maybe one killer piece or some notion that you're gonna...
I got a perfect answer for you. A large part of the reason that I got this place was I needed space to work on the pieces I'm about to describe, which I did not think that I had the talent to do yet, which is why I haven't done them. And I've also become captivated by all this neon stuff that most of the work in this room, I would say 90% of it, are things that I have come up with since being here. And a lot of my ideas that I've had from like 10 years ago, I still haven't worked on. They've continued to be on the back burner. And a lot of that stuff has to do with wood. It's 3D, some of it's furniture, some of it's sculpture.
All right.
And we went so awesomely huge with this whole glam thing that is pretty inherent to neon. You know, it's pretty in your face, pretty Las Vegas-y with the show.
See a little pendulum coming?
Well, I feel like I got a lot. Shift. I feel like I got a lot of completion by doing that show. And it's funny, right when I got this place, because I was always interested in these wood sculptures, I bought this thing, and
chainsaw?
It's better.
Damn it!
It's the shape of like a donut, and it's got all these spikes on it, dude. It's got like 150 spikes, and it's this metal thing that goes onto an angle grinder, and you know, angle grinder's going what, like 14,000 RPM?
Definitely dangerous.
And you take this thing to wood, and it's like a lightsaber. Dude, it's like butter. It melts away. And so I'm really excited to get sculpting in large. I've got this fucking segment of a tree back here. I don't know if you saw it. It's like a stump piece that's about 80 pounds or something of just solid wood of a bottom of a tree. But that honestly might be a practice piece. I want to do some life-size figures, some wooden sculptures. And these are... I don't want to give away too many of my secrets.
And if I may for a second,
yeah,
it sounds like already from what I hear, from what I've got to witness, you building things, essentially fabricating things since I've known you. The most significant aesthetic switch would be that now you're starting with the thing and reducing
and shrinking down rather than building up, as a lot of my other work is. Yeah, for sure.
Good switch, yeah.
Well, and, you know, you think about, what's his name, who did it? Michelangelo, right? And,
yeah, what's his name?
And he said, you know, the thing is in there already. I'm just getting rid of everything that doesn't need to be on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all he ever saw was the finished piece.
Yeah. Well, and
it's a gnarly
my
YouTube
first
hole.
love, right? My oldest love is architecture. And I've heard...
As a baby, he just loved architecture.
Hey, you think he's making fun of me, but if you look at some of my sketchbooks and shit from when I was like 6, they were like floor plans from aerial view, dude. Yeah, straight up. With like doors marked.
Tile patterns.
And yeah, where the couch goes and everything. No, I love buildings and residences especially. And, you know, I've been out to modernism in Palm Springs and all that. But, you know, I've heard architects say, like, the space that the action is taking place in, whether it's like a commercial building or living, if it's a residential building, whatever it is, it's all just air, right? All we're doing is slicing up and creating empty space. We're just rearranging empty space.
Yeah. The most valuable thing on this property is empty space. That's been part of my ethos, and everyone who's ever walked through the door that hears me preach about not bringing shit here, yourself included, has to do with that, is because there's a thin line. If you don't have the space to create, or if you have just enough non-space or clutter, there's a tipping point to where that's all it is, and it does block you. And so if you have that in the ethos, like you're saying, the space, we're designing the space, it automatically makes people go, you know what you should do, or what you could. It brings out creativity.
Inventiveness just happens.
Even from non-creatives. Yeah, so shout out to space.
I'm working with a book right now that I think was initially published about 30 or so years ago, called The Artist's Way, right, by Julia Cameron.
Okay.
And she puts together a 12-week program. So it's not just a book you sit and read. There's a ton of tasks and practices that you do, some of which are consistent over the whole program, and some of which vary week to week as it builds on itself. And that I'm only 2 weeks into it right now, very start, and already I've felt a lot of blockage clear up, and that's what her whole process is about. It's about, you know, we're talking thrust and versus weight. It's about throwing off weight. It's about clearing up those blockages. And sure, the title is The Artist's Way, but she says right away in the first like 10 pages, is really anybody who's up to something is a creative and effectively can be called an artist, right? If you're a groundbreaking lawyer, you're looking for new openings in development and usage of the law. If you're an entrepreneur, dude, if you're a businessman, an entrepreneur is absolutely a creative.
That's not how things are done around here, son. And then somebody's going, well, let's figure that out.
Every business that's gonna be the next fucking huge thing, the next Netflix or something, sounds ridiculous, even silly, when it's being posited, because if it made sense, it would already exist.
And the non-creative people would swoop on it. You know, they would have thought of it. Or like Rick Rubin says, the idea is like it's floating out there. And I can't remember the name of the Rick Rubin book, but shout out to Rick Rubin because that is the artist Bible. We'll put
that dude's a force of nature. He's
special.
But
that book is fire. I've read it twice and I can't think of it just because like I can think of his whole thing, dude, was like creativity is like first, second, and third, you know, and a lot of times it's just you getting in the way.
Creative act.
The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. The Creative Act by Rick Rubin is like the new Bible for creatives and people who think they're not creative. Read it twice, watch YouTube videos about reading it, like get in bed with it, love it, snuggle with it, because it is awesome. It's great. And he's great. But and he mentions that like the idea is floating out there, and regardless of like you had the idea, but then like it's probably a matter of time before somebody else comes with the idea, and then you didn't do it. You're like, oh, I thought of that. Everybody has that moment. You see it on like late night TV, and you're like, oh, but it's my idea. It's like actually it wasn't. It is an idea. It's the idea's idea. It's like you didn't act upon it. You know, and it's not somebody else's fault that they did it, but those who don't act. Yeah.
A million artists have heard this exact thing I'm about to say, and I had it happen to me when I was a kid in one of those museums with my dad in Palm Springs. I was like 5-6 years old, and there was something, and you know, a 5-year-old or whatever. So this painting is bigger than that one. It is ginormous. I don't know, it was 6-7 feet tall, which to a little kid it might have been 10 feet tall.
Bigger than life.
Yeah, beyond, right? And it's in this big room with the white walls and everything. And, you know, and it's got a price tag that, at that age, what's the difference between $12,000 and $1 million?
Or $5.
It's anything over $100 is basically status, you know, to a little kid like that.
Sure.
And I'm looking at this thing, and it was really simple. And I said to my dad, well, I could do that. And he goes, but you didn't. And that, you know, I got a picture of my father hanging up here in the studio. That was one of the greatest lessons of my entire life. Yeah, okay, I could, but you didn't.
Shout out to Eric's dad, because that's just like 5-year-old dick kick. in the best way.
Oh, 100%.
That'll jumpstart your motor. It was so
objective. It was like a zen moment.
Can't argue against it.
Yeah.
I love it. And that's not even like, don't do it. It's just like, but you didn't, but you could.
That's the thing. Somebody could take that as very discouraging. It's like, no, that's one of the most encouraging things I've heard in my entire life.
So with that, you're going to start carving and going from big and reduction. That's
yeah. So I've done all this highly illuminated stuff, and so I want to get into the wood. You know, it's a supernatural material, and it's a much calmer material than neon lighting. And something that I've been interested in for a very long time, I'm very passionate about, is music and sound reproduction, electronic amplification. I've built my own guitar amplifier, and so I want to have sculptures that are amplifiers. And I want to make something that, instead of having a black box that's your stereo, it could be like a little wooden model of a tree with the amplifier tubes hanging out of it like acorns or something.
Bumping, yeah.
And you slap a couple wires in the back. Like, it's going to be an absolute art piece in and of its own right, but also functional on this whole other level. And I got a big backlog of those on my mind. So, yeah, I'm ready to go.
So you're by looking forward to 2024, which was the prompt, ironically enough, you're looking backwards into your old ideas. Now you've been empowered by being here, being inspired,
in the community that I've found here, dude. I mean, everybody, right? They're family. Like, this is unlike anything else. And we were talking about hiring Jillian earlier. Like, she slotted so right into the vibe of the 1980 family, and is absolutely part of that. Just like, you either get it or you don't. I feel like it's pretty obvious the kind of flavor that we have, and you're either someone who can roll or not. And she showed up and clearly could roll and is part of the joint 100%.
Perfect. Well, I like the fact that that empowered you to the point where you now feel the courage to approach your ideas, and you haven't forgot about them as well. Mm-hmm. In the past, you have this new bag of tools. It's just like I don't play video games a lot now, but I did when I was a kid, and it's like Legend of Zelda. You could do some stuff, and it was really hard if you didn't have the right power up or whatever, but if you just found it, and as soon as you get it, then you go through, you're like, oh, dude, I got
no problem.
The silver arrow, I'm just cutting through these monkeys, or whoever, Ghost, I don't know, Ganon. Shout out to Ganon. But you get to that board that was so hard earlier, and now you got the right tools. You're just like, poo, poo, poo. Oh, sorry about it. I won. But now it sounds like you got the silver arrow. And instead of just forgetting about your ideas that were important to you, now you're reapproaching them, which is dope. I mean, you're unearthing, and it's cool. It's not like you're like digging for King Tut's tombs. Stuff maybe in your brain. It's your tomb, your King Tut.
But it's very salient stuff.
Yeah, it's stuff that's important to you, all the time, and then you wrote it, you did it, but it's neat to like kind of, it's almost like a what do you bury, like a time box or whatever, like
a time capsule.
Yeah, so you bury it, so like you would just bury these ideas.
And now it's ready for the unearthing.
Yeah, and you get them like, oh, what did I say? Like, I have a couple, and I might do it. I don't know if I can. I definitely have to practice, but I know I have at least one, like a couple hip hop lyrics. To your point, I have a whole stack of. I'd love to do what you just did as far as like going back to your ideas. A whole stack of most of my sketchbooks, my whole career in art were all ideas. Mm-hmm. They weren't sketches. They were just idea. And I just keep doing it and keep stacking them up. But I've never like done like you're saying, like, let me just turn the camera around and focus some energy on some of those things. But it'd be nice to like dig back into that. Be like, let's just take a walk down memory lane, but in 2024.
Yeah. Well, and I absolutely gotta take this opportunity to say to all the folks who are listening that may be in this kind of a position, I get asked a lot. I get asked a lot, are you good at expressing yourself? And most people expect me to say yes, and my answer is definitely no.
Yeah.
And it's funny. People ask me that, and I go, absolutely not. That's why I became an artist.
Yeah.
And doing what I've done here, this is the point I'm trying to make, right? Yeah. Doing what I've done here over the last 3 years has allowed access to a truer part of my person that I'd always wanted to find and embody. And at the first, man, I was so nervous. I mean, when I first got this place, the first 2 months,
you spoke
about that door was always closed.
Sure.
And I was in here working, and I didn't want to meet anybody, and I was quiet, and I didn't want people to see my work in progress. And once it was done, I was happy to show it. And I was very insecure about showing people work that was partially complete.
You know, it could be intimidating, and I appreciate you sharing that vulnerability because...
But sharing
you went
work
through
in progress is easy now. But it's been the process of being here and making this stuff, all of this stuff that's in here, on camera and off, which is so honest to me. And I would love to be the guy who just walks down the street and talks about that shit, who can just express it easily through his being in communication. But I can't. Well, I can, but with difficulty.
Yeah.
And making the artworks that I've made here has reduced dramatically that level of difficulty. So in all the aspects of my life that have nothing to do with art, I can be at a bar, I can, be talking to some girl, whatever. It's so much easier and smoother and relaxed to be genuine with the innermost part of me now. And
'Cause you're in
that
touch
is a
with
quality that has been gained over these 3 years in this place by doing this work.
Love it. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, bro. That's cool.
My
Cool to
pleasure.
hear. We're stoked to hear that. And if I don't do anything else, that testimony and a lot of the other artists, that's very empowering. And I'm glad you're sharing that with everyone, because it's like, whether you're here or not, if you do get an opportunity to, work through sometimes art can be, well, it's always therapy, but what you just described was therapeutic process. By making this something you felt vulnerable, scared to share at first, but now 3 years later, can't wait to share it. And
Fuck yeah, dude, that's my truth.
Yeah,
Like, you're looking at it,
and it's rolled into other parts of your life. I mean, you just did like a arttherapy.com trademark. We're gonna get that. Commercial. So
next sponsor of
it's
the
our
pod.
sponsor, arttherapy.com. Sponsor us. With that, Eric, thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate it. We're almost done here, guys. We're going to get down the road. We're going to do a formal shout out to Scott Ludwig. And this goes into our next segment, which is our last segment. It's going to be what's happening in 2024. Right now, we don't really know. I mean, it'd be cool if we did. All we do know is January. And there's a lot.
3 days away, baby, 2024.
There's a lot going on in January. So Scott Ludwig is my homie. I mentioned him earlier. When we were doing a Beverly Hills art show, Scott's first big show that was not here. It was somewhere else. To your point, he was showing his work, his first real body of work, to the larger Beverly Hills and LA community at one of the biggest shows of the year there. And there you're in a fishbowl, man. There's a lot of other fish, but there's people walking by, and the proof is in the pudding. And I've done it myself, and I've had success in the fact that I did it, and the people like the work, but I didn't make real sales or a real footprint. I honestly felt like that might not be the place for me personally, and I'm not trying to steal Scott or any of the other artists' spotlight there. I just know that I've actually done it. I've been through it. This year, I had the pleasure of helping him do it and watching him go through the process that you just described. He not only got a studio here and used to he used to be really recluse. He'd be making work and then not wanting to see. And you've even seen it since he's been here.
His show. So Scott put on his show here immediately following my and Cammy's show that we were talking about earlier. It's gonna be lit, and filled up that gallery. And it was the first time that he had ever had a name title headline show.
And indeed,
solo show.
In the time of making that work from February to October, not only similar to you, where you're going from having your show to immediately to Burning Man, he was going to have his show, and then we had to take it the next week to Beverly Hills, which I knew from experience. The reason I brought it up is brought up my personal experience, because I've actually done it from this building. I know what it takes to make a body of work and construct. Shout out to the homie Joey for helping me build the walls, and Brett Douglas always. But building walls, if you guys don't know, Beverly Hills show is at Beverly Gardens Park on Santa Monica Boulevard, downtown Beverly Hills.
So it's all temporary walls.
Kind of a big deal, but you got to show up with a U-Haul with all your work packaged. And shout out to Bert Eisenhertz, the first person that ever hit me to that show. Also a mentor of mine and soon-to-be podcast guest. Because of all my experience there, I kind of knew, I'm let me help you out, Scott. This is what it's going to take. You got to have the truck. You got to make the art. You did it. But you got to know how are you getting it there. And then when we get there, you're in a park. It's not level. You build the walls. And some people, it's you get a tent or whatever. But he's building big pieces. We maxed out the parameters of what you're allowed to do with. So
honestly, I hope all you guys listening go and look up Scott's work. He makes not only badass art, he makes big ass art.
Yeah,
it is ginormous.
And if you're in Vegas in a hotel and you have a giant lobby with a 16-foot wall, we got a piece for you for sure.
Yeah, this stuff is humongous.
Definitely.
Well, and he's good. To your point that you're talking about with the show and transportation and everything, he's really good at designing work that has this large footprint and large square footage and large impact, of course. And it's readily transportable. Like he knows how to collapse this stuff like a magician to get it wherever the hell you need it.
It took some work, and to that point, when we were there, we did the show. It was great. It was his kind of second debut. He had his first real show here. His parents came. It was awesome. You can check out Scott's work or some of it at location1980gallery.com. So we did the show here, and then we're doing like immediately into the show there, and we did it, and again, you're on display, you're meeting people, you're giving out cards, you're having a presence, but you don't know how it's going to go. It's not scripted. Even if you've done it 10 years in a row and you're really successful, it doesn't guarantee you're going to have a good week. There's market trends and all kinds of things in our world that I'll admit we're still figuring out. We don't know. Nobody knows. I don't know. Maybe you do, but I don't have a bulletproof plan.
Yeah, sometimes there's rogue waves.
But I do know one thing. You got to show up and be somebody. You got to be there. You got to present your work if you want something good to happen. And we did that. And one of the most interesting guys we met was Dr. Robbie Gordon. He was one of the last people on a Sunday. He came up to us and he said, "You guys probably want to do this." And he was an interesting guy. He had I think he had some cool sunglasses or something. And he was just, we had already burnt our energy. We're just like waiting for 6 o'clock. When can we break down? Like, regardless of how it went, like, let's please get out of here. We're trying to get the truck back to Home Depot. Shout out to Home Depot for renting artist box trucks. And we made it also. But one of the last guys we met was Dr. Robbie Gordon. And we didn't know what he was pitching us. He's the owner of the Hollywood Hills, what is it called? The
Sculpture Garden?
Hollywood Sculpture Garden, founded by Dr. Robbie Gordon. It's an iconic landmark overlooking the Los Angeles skyline. With its scenic location and breathtaking views, both local tourists and tourists cannot help but admire the unique garden. So Scott and I went there right after the show and admired the unique garden. And it's a double lot. And you see, it's almost like if you've been in Hollywood, you go down the streets and it's just, the houses are usually small in the front and then they go down multiple stories in the back with whatever view they got. Mm-hmm. And you see these sculptures and you're like, I don't know. Is it a junkyard? Does he have one or two sculptures? No, it is legit. And we were like blown away at the sheer engineering, especially having been at Burning Man recently and helped build a project. Some of this stuff was on that level, but on a cliff in Hollywood, where
so it's there indefinitely. I mean, the burn is there for a week.
Right.
This stuff is there basically indefinitely.
And it's like, how did they come up these streets with, like, we're driving a box.
With the parts even.
We're driving a box truck, trying to, like, navigate trash trucks just to get this piece there. And so anyway.
Yeah, those are like 1930s and 40s streets, dude. They're narrow and they're sloped as hell.
It's pretty intense. So we went there after the Beverly show to kind of check this guy out and see what it's about. And then we realized immediately, like, totally legit. It's eye-opening. Really cool. It's a 3-story lot, at least. It goes all the way down to the next street. And if you see it from a bird's eye view, like a drone view, you're looking at the LA skyline, which is cool. And then all these sculptures. And you're imagining, how did they get this, like, 2-story transformer iron sculpture on? And he's like, we had multiple cranes, and this guy built it for multiple years. So,
it's several artists that fill it out.
There's let's see here. Artists also have the opportunity to display their work there, allowing for sales, advertising opportunities. The HSG is often frequented by gallery owners and museum curators, and used for events, parties, weddings, and as a filming location. It's been featured in the 104 Things You'll Love About the Best of LA. If you guys are just listening to this, I'm reading like a super wordy description, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because Scott sponsored our podcast tonight, and and we went up there, so we followed through with Dr. Robbie Gordon. We found out the place was legit, and that was in October. And then just recently, I think it was last week, we found he gave us a spot on the actual structure. There was some 2D stuff. So most things, it's a sculpture garden, so it's 3D. But there was 2D items too. And we moved an 8-foot by 8-foot painting framed up there, and a attach it to the structure of the building. And so now on January 13th, 5 to 8 p.m., you can RSVP to Dr. Robbie Gordon at gmail.com, welcoming new art by Scott Ludwig. So he's been featured in all kinds of stuff. And there's 160 different sculptures up there. And we're going to go up there and check it out. So we might do a little 1980 field trip.
Dude,
check out,
I'm in. This is like intriguing as hell.
The first time we went, we were equally intrigued. And then when we left the second time and we looked up, we were getting in the U-Haul truck, which almost got hit by. Shout out to the dumpster guys that drove by. I don't know why there's 3 trash trucks in one day on one of those little streets, but there were.
They do it every week.
And they did it without.
They could do it blind.
They didn't hit anything, but we're standing up there on 2 ladders, which is probably not the safest way to hang this piece of art, 8-foot piece of art on a stucco wall, but we did it. And while we're doing it, we're looking down at this trash truck guy, this beep, 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 beep. And then like, should we move the truck? And Scott's like, oh, he'll figure it out. Which he did 3 times, 3 different garbage trucks. But when we did it...
Yeah, one for the regular, one for the recycle, one for the plants.
I guess so, yeah. So efficient. So, but once we had it on the wall, then we realized we went from doing a show here, Scott did. I was lucky enough and honored to assist him. Doing the show here to doing a show in Beverly Hills, to him meeting Dr. Robbie Gordon, to us going to suss out the spot, to then hanging the work. And then now on January 13th, his work will be featured along with the other 160 different artists.
What is that, a Friday, a Saturday? What is that, January 13th?
I think it's a Saturday. It's a busy Saturday for us at 1980, which leads us into our 1980 schedule. So yeah, shout out to Scott Ludwig and Dr. Robbie Gordon and the Hollywood Sculpture Garden. Now we're going to get down to business, and we're way over time, which is fine because we just crushed it.
That's what I love about this format.
There's a lot going on. We're gonna go We're gonna go to Jillian's fine work and see what we have scheduled here at 1980. So, what we're gonna get down to first is last year we took a big chance. We mentioned that this year, or this podcast, that we invested in renting more space here, maxing out the space. Normally,
we got that street frontage now that we didn't used to have.
We needed the signage and no more people saying, "I've lived here for 30 years and never knew what this place was." Now it says,
like me.
Yeah, now it says big as fuck art gallery. But people still say that, but it's fine. But now they can't. Now they're wrong.
Now they don't have an excuse. It literally says art gallery and pieces of metal bolted onto the building.
Fair enough, but we're going to roll into the fact that the reason we did that is because the room up front acts as a really good classroom. So now we have classes. People all the time for the last 13 years have asked, do you guys teach? And our number one recurring event since the very beginning of 1980 has been the life drawing or figure drawing weekly workshops that we've done repetitively every Wednesday and Saturday for 13 years straight, which I will hang my...
It's totally unguided. It's not a teaching. It's like, hey, we're providing.
It's what you would call
the scenario and the model, and you show up with some materials.
It's what you would call.
You can paint, you can draw, you can whatever.
It's what you call specifically an uninstructed figure drawing workshop.
Yes.
Which there's many more of all around LA and Orange County. We just happen to be now one of the longest running. We've had a lot of really good muses, and we've had a ton of really good talent come through here, and that's our number one thing that we do.
Yeah, we had an amazing one last night.
But when we got the new classroom, when it opened up was now, and people used to ask, do you teach figure drawing? Do you teach art classes?
They're more formalized instructors.
Yeah, and so now that I was like, well, if you build it, they will come. So part of my reasoning for over expanding and getting the classroom was like, I don't know who's going to teach. Maybe I'll teach. Somebody's going to teach. Get some chairs, get some tables, teach a damn class. Now it's happening. So we have several of our resident artists, including but not limited to myself, Jesse Fortune at Fortune Artist on Instagram. Jackie Danger teaches our blazing paint or puffin paint, if you will.
Puffin paint.
Napa, and all these links will be in our descriptions. She teaches how to do flow art or pour painting, and our homie Revel Shout out to Revel and Napa and Jackie Danger. He teaches our graffiti 101 and 102 and 103 class.
Yeah, can control, spray paint control.
All coming up in January. So January, our schedule's super busy. Let's see what we have just on Wednesdays alone. January, there's 5 Wednesdays. We have Sana, Katie, Lauren, Jessica, and Kevin. And we have multiple long pose workshops, including our first ever 2-day long pose workshop with Dane, one of our super male models that is always traveling, so it's hard to get. So this is the first opportunity we've ever had here at 1980 in 13 years to paint one model on January 6th from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then again on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Multiple day session, one same pose. And you can do that for, it's a 12-hour pose for $25 per session or $50 for all 4. So it's a real steal. It's an opportunity for us to bring in sculpture artists or oil painters who normally don't get a chance to make a finished piece.
Yeah, they need to go slow.
Yeah, so we have every Wednesday booked and a few Saturdays booked. And we have our new sound bath coming up.
Hell yeah.
With Kristen Reed. That's January 4th from 7 o'clock to 8:30 p.m. So we're doing sound bath, yoga, art classes, art workshops, instructed, uninstructed, whatever you want. If you get an idea, if you're a teacher, if you're local, if you want to either take a class or teach a class, DM us, get at us in the comments. We're here for you guys. We're your local neighborhood art gallery and studio. Location 1980.
We'll work out the knots in your brain.
Yeah. Happy 2023. Good riddance. Let's go 2024.
Yeah, buddy.
Cheers. Thank you for supporting our podcast and our studio and art gallery.
Now I'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Yeah, without our supporters, we can't do it. Without everybody who's ever thought about buying a painting, anybody who's given us a like, a share, a comment, a mention, a word of mouth, that's the only reason we're still sitting here to this day. And it's only now that we're actually sharing this with the whole world.
Well, it's been working for 14 years.
Yeah, and
no reason it's going to stop now.
And now we get to share it with everybody.
Hell yeah.
So thank you guys that are new, and thank all of you who've been here since the very beginning. We can't wait. We feel like after all this time, we're only just getting started.
Cheers. Amen, brother.